Rory O'Malley is a Tony-nominated star, best known for his roles as King George III in Hamilton and Elder McKinley in the Book of Mormon. Now he's teaming up with fellow Broadway actors to form Belt the Vote, a nonpartisan social media campaign encouraging theater fans, professionals, and students to register to vote. Let's take a look.
I am a theater nerd.
A triple threat.
An artist.
I have a voice and I'm gonna use it.
Look out, America!
Because this November,
With the support of Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS,
Our country's theater community isn't just gonna rock the vote, we're gonna belt the vote.
Belt the vote, belt the vote.
The midterm elections are coming up quickly.
are you registered to vote yet?
are your friends?
What about your former cast of Grease?
We all have a former cast of Grease.
Being a good theater artist means being a good citizen. Let's belt the vote by registering every cast and audience member.
In every theater and school across the country.
The election takes place on November 6th, and registration deadlines are approaching quickly, so
Join the movement at beltthevote.org.
You can register to vote and figure out how to run voter registration at your local school or theater.
And remember, this November 6th,
Belt.
belt.
Belt the vote.
you vote, Glenn Coco.
Everyone, please give a warm Bill Bunch welcome to Rory O'Malley.
Hi. Hey guys.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. I'm passionate about voting.
Yes, I love it.
All hands on deck. Hashtag Belt the Vote campaign. I think it's such an incredible idea. Can you tell us how it got started, your involvement and everything?
Yeah, well, my husband, Gerald Schroeder, and I were wanting to do something positive.
Right.
Because it just feels so difficult to find the positive thing to do right now to make a difference. And so at any time I want to make any change, I know I can reach out to my friends in the Broadway community and we can build a positive message. And so I went to Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS and they were like, let's make this video, let's do a social media campaign. And then we partnered with people at When We All Vote, a voter registration organization, and they helped us build the infrastructure to get people registered to vote. So you can go to beltthevote.org and register to vote. We also have theaters all across the country that are participating by having their own voter registrations at the Geffen Playhouse in Los Angeles or American Repertory Theater in Boston, at Cleveland Playhouse, my hometown in Cleveland, Texas, Florida, Maryland, all across the country. There are theaters that are getting on their stage at the end of the show and saying, as you leave the theater, you can register in the lobby and make a difference this November 6th. We want people's voices to be heard November 6th.
I want to make this important thing about it. It's a nonpartisan
It's
organization.
nonpartisan, nonprofit.
Yeah.
Everyone can get involved. And it's just important that our community, the theater community, knows that being a good theater artist means being a good citizen and making your voice heard.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and there's so many big, amazing Broadway stars involved. Like Sarah Bareilles is in that video. She's my fave. I'm obsessed. Who else was involved, and how did you get them to join?
Well, the Broadway community is so willing to use their voices for good, literally singing voices for good. And so it was just about finding the people who, a diverse group of people who could reach out to their friends to get them involved, and their hometown theaters and their schools. So we just started making phone calls, and that's how anything starts. If you want to make a difference, pick up the phone, text your friends, come together and find out what you can do. And it's so important that we all do that for this election because only 40% of people who are eligible to vote vote in midterm elections.
It's insane.
It's pathetic. Yeah. It's pathetic. I mean, there's no other way to put it. So we can't have that be the case. It can't be 40% of the people voting this time.
Why do you think people aren't voting? Like, is there a barrier to registering? Like, what is keeping people from doing it?
It is so easy. It's incredibly easy. You can go to beltthevote.org and make it happen right now. However, I think that it's got to be a group effort. I think it's hard for people to talk about. It takes your friends, your family, your theater, your school saying, this is what we're doing now. I have had people say to me, do you really need to get the theater community involved? Aren't they like very conscientious and there for social change? But yeah, maybe I'm preaching to the choir, but our choir doesn't know how to sing.
Right.
You got to teach the choir how to sing. Right. And I think that everyone's just a little afraid to take that first step. But if we do it together, we won't have to live in that fear.
Totally. It's important to bring your friends in. On that note, is there any other way to get people, like can you throw parties in your own town or throw registering, like how can people get involved if they are registered to vote but still want to be involved in the process?
Okay, throw a party.
Okay.
Yes. One. Yeah. Yeah. Have a potluck. Have people come to your community theater and talk about voting. Because what you can do is pick up your phone and start calling everyone in it and say, hey, are you registered? Text all of your friends. Use hashtag #BeltTheVote on social media to have the conversation. Because really the reason people don't go to vote or don't get registered is because they aren't being held accountable by their community, by their friends and family. And it's just important that we don't let this slide by.
What I've noticed personally is that I think education is a really big thing, like understanding who you're voting for.
Very true.
So within my own personal friend group, I find that like there is a lot more talk about voting just because of like what's going on in the world. But do you have any websites or anything that you recommend when it comes to educating yourself about who to vote for? Because I know this is a nonpartisan organization.
It is. It's nonpartisan, but you know, there's no one better than a millennial or a young person to figure out how to research something on the internet. If you go to a candidate's website, you will find all the information you need to know. And also, if you have an organization that you love and that you believe in, you know, find the candidates or causes that are important to that organization or that that person. And if you just take a few minutes to make an informed decision that is going to be your superpower. You know, we are so obsessed with super movies, superpower, you know, superheroes, thank you. And we are in America, okay? We get to vote in America. That is a superpower. You ask anyone else across the world what they would do if they could vote in an American election. They would be so grateful. They wouldn't take it for granted. It's so important that we take our vote and use it. November 6th.
I'd like to get your opinion on something. Since the 2016 election, actually Broadway has become kind of a political area where you know Secretary Clinton's been going to a lot of Broadway shows and getting standing ovations.
She likes the theater.
She likes the theater. she has the time now. She wants to go. Good for her. Well, you know, Vice President Mike Pence went to Hamilton, and
I was performing that night.
Right, and I wanted to hear about that. And also there was a guy waving a Trump flag at a Frozen when they were giving bows, and one of the actors took the flag away because he felt it was disrespectful. How do you feel? Do you feel like this is the next step for Broadway to take action to kind of bring people together to a common ground, or do you see like this is just how partisan or divided our country is getting now? Broadway is kind of getting affected by it.
Broadway has always been at the forefront of social change, always. Broadway Cares, Equity Fights AIDS didn't start because it was a cute way to raise money. It was because people on Broadway were dying. People were contracting AIDS. No one was doing anything or raising any money. So Tom Viola and Broadway Cares started a movement. Jerry Mitchell started Broadway Bears, a wonderful choreographer and director on Broadway. And it raises millions of dollars for causes, not just AIDS-related causes anymore, but for like 400 nonprofits all across the country. So to me, the heart of Broadway is social change, because if you are an actor, if you are a storyteller on Broadway, you have empathy for humans, for the story of humanity. And so it goes hand in hand with what we do. And it's live, and it's dangerous, and it's scary. Being in front of an audience, you know, something could happen at any moment, and that's the beautiful part of theater. And so when a dignitary or a politician comes to the theater, I don't care what side of the aisle they're on or who they are, they get applauded and booed. Both things happen because people are alive and they're making their voice heard. And that's the beauty of Broadway.
And going back to Hamilton, you were King George III, which I feel like if I get my singing voice better as the role I was born to play, I feel like it wouldn't require a lot of acting.
I see it. I know people. We'll talk.
I need to learn to do that walk. But what was it like performing on that night when Vice President Mike Pence was there, but also being a part of Hamilton, you know, which is a global cultural phenomenon?
Yeah. That night was, one of many, many memorable nights that Hamilton gave me. But really what I remember is the fact that, we were actually giving a speech at the end of the show to collect money for Broadway Cares, as we do at that time of year. And Vice President-elect Pence was there, and we thanked him in the speech a few times, and we said, we hope that you represent all of us. It was a very respectful speech. Obviously that all got lost in translation for many reasons. But the entire show, if you see it, is about freedom, voting, and how many people fought for America and to make this this country. And so it was actually a really beautiful moment. Obviously there was a lot of discussion afterwards, but that show gave me so many beautiful gifts, but to be able to have met so many wonderful people who would come backstage and, and people who, were making a difference in the country. Whether the other people agreed with it or not, it's a beautiful show with an amazing message, and it changed my life for sure.
Hamilton's amazing, and you're doing a lot of other really interesting stuff now too. Yeah. The Bob's Burgers musical.
Yes, I saw you guys talking about it yesterday. Yes.
How did you get to be a part of that?
The creators reached out to me, and I was like, yes, I would love to be in a part of something with the Belcher family. I love that show, and they were doing a musical episode, and I think it's September 30th. It's premiering. It is so much fun. You guys, if you're a fan of the show or you're a fan of musicals, you'll love this episode. And David and Andrew Reynolds and Josh Gad, my buddies, who I've all been on stages with, are in it. So it felt like a reunion in animated form.
A weird reunion, but a good one, sure.
Yeah.
And then what else? I know you also have a podcast. And
I have a podcast, yes, that you're so up on. Thank you so much. Better at plugging my stuff than me. I have a podcast called Living the Dream, and I basically talk to my friends who are actors in the business, and we talk about the realities of what it takes day in, day out to live your dream. Not just about getting the job, but how do you afford to feed yourself in the meantime? Because people don't want to talk about that, but when I got out of college and I wanted to be an actor, I desperately needed to figure that out. So I talked to people who've made it on Broadway, people who are still finding their way to be in a TV show or struggling as an artist, to see how they're living their dream. And I also have a TV show coming out on Lifetime at the beginning of next year called American Princess, where I play Shakespeare at a Renaissance festival. A pretentious Shakespearean actor. My husband says I didn't have to do any research for that. But it's like one of the most fun projects I've ever been a part of.
Sounds awesome.
That's really great.
Definitely check that out.
Well, Rory, thank you so much for joining us. You can learn more about how to register to vote and hashtag Belt the Vote campaign by visiting www.beltthevote.org. Rory, thank you. This is really, really an amazing conversation.